Hi, this is Jen with Unchained Crochet. If you haven't done it yet, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to see more items and tutorials like this. Well, what can I say other than Orchid changed her mind again? These purple and fuchsia yarns for me are just multiple personalities. They can't make up their mind what they want to be. They're screaming, I want to be this, I want to be that. The yarn speaks to me, but sometimes it speaks a little too much. So I've got a pretty good start on Orchid again. And Orchid is now going to be an asymmetrical round yoke cardi with buttons. So I'm not sure what kind of buttons I'll put on her yet, but got a pretty good start. It's almost to the peak of my bust line. I have increased enough. And let me explain what I did here. Since you last seen her, I frogged her first of all. The ruffles was pretty. It was just the sheen of the yarn just didn't speak to me for spring and summer for that style up top. So that being said, I will do that again with the ruffles, like that bib look. But it's going to be more of a Soko project where it's just the bib yoke that is made and then added fabric for the sleeves and the body of the top. But this yarn is the Sweet Divinity by Hobby Lobby. And it has quite a, I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't feel like acrylic, and it doesn't really feel like silk. It feels a little satiny when you're working with it. A little bit like Karen Simply Soft, but the weight doesn't seem as heavy. So what I did was I started the circular yoke with a like 100 stitches. And then I did 2 straight rows of half doubles. That's up here. And then I began with my increases and working double crochet. Sorry, I've had sinus issues today since I woke up. I have a cyst in my maxillary sinus, or used to. I don't know if I still do. I haven't had an MRI lately, but it's definitely swollen again like it had been. I don't know if you guys can tell it. It swells up right here. And I've had this huge sinus headache going today. So I just took some Benadryl. Okay, so once you do establish your collar, I like to establish my collar with a half double crochet row or 2. And then get into double crochet. I'm not doing the whole sweater in half doubles. It just goes too slow for me. And so on the 3rd row, I began my increases. And you can try it on as you go. It's very easy to do since it's left open. It's not like with knitting, you do a circular yoke. You've got a big circular knitting needle in there, and you can't really try on past a certain point if you're a big person, unless you put a couple circular needles through or put it on thread. So it is very easy to try it on with crochet. So the 3rd row, every 4th stitch, I did an extra stitch in. And then I did a straight row of crochet, and then did every 5th stitch. So every other row I'm increasing. So I did 4, a plain row of double crochet, then I did 5 every 5th stitch, got an extra stitch, and did a plain row. Then I did every 6th stitch, every 7th stitch, every 8th stitch, 9th stitch, 10th, 11th, 12th. And I think the 12 was my last one that I did. No, 13. Sorry, I went up to 13. Once I got to 13, I decided to do several rows with no increases because I figured it was big enough. I tried it on. It is big enough that it can reach, my armpit area. And then, since it's not to the peak of my bust yet, I'm going to add some more stitches once I divide the yoke into the sleeve sections and the body section. So the body will have some extra added stitches, and I'm going to do that based on the lace stitch that I pick for the body and the arms, or the sleeves. So if I'm looking at one that has like a 10 stitch repeat or 11 stitch repeat, I'm going to add stitches to where it adds up to that amount that I need. Does that make sense? So that will have one more increase area for the body. It's just easier to do it that way, especially if you haven't made up your mind what you want to put down at the bottom yet, what stitch pattern you want to go with. I added the buttonholes. I just did a chain one, just a fillet stitch basically, chain one, skipped a stitch, and left buttonholes. And there are 4 rows between the buttonholes. So sometimes it was doing a buttonhole at the beginning of a row, and then every other buttonhole row, just the buttonholes, are at the beginning of the row, and then the other ones are at the end of a row. So just count in, you know, how many stitches in you want to make your buttonholes. I made mine like 4 stitches in from the edges. So far I've got 4 buttonholes, and I'm going to do one more when I get the 4th row. And that'll probably take place about the same time or shortly thereafter, dividing the stitches up for the sleeves and the body. I hope that makes sense to you. I use stitch markers, and I did a count of my stitches. Gauge is kind of important, kind of not important. It's important to know where about you are with your stitch count. Otherwise, you're going to end up with way too much fabric. But you need the extra fabric to get around the arms, and extra ease right here for arm movement. So you don't want to make it really tight around your shoulders. Does that make sense? But you don't want to go hog wild with the stitches either and have it too ruffly if you don't want it ruffled. So these stitch markers, I just counted every 50 stitches and placed the stitch marker. And then I decided after adding those up, I had like 265 stitches to go around all the way. After dividing that by 3.5, which is about the gauge I'm getting, 3.5 stitches to the inch, then I decided I needed one more row of increases, which was my every 13 stitches. So it sounds really complicated, but it's really not. I mean, just stitch away. You know, if you watch my body ratios video, that will help you in designing your own top, your own cardigan, whatever you're wanting to do. But basically your bust size should be like, your collar should be 40% or so of your bust, or half, 40 to 50%. That is body proportions. And then your sleeves are going to be half. So I have to divide this up and make sure that I get enough sleeve stitches and make sure that I get enough body stitches, at least where it is, the ratio is good, because I'm going to add more stitches to the body part of it, so that it continues to flare out some for the hips. And then, you know, you don't want to get these itty bitty skinny arms and a loose body shape. So you need to have your body proportions in mind and allow the equal amount of ease to the body versus the sleeves. You want an equal amount of ease. Unless you want a really flouncy sweater and really tight arms, then you want to stick with those proportions. So I just kind of eyeball it. I usually look at it like I'm looking down at it right now. And I usually, like when I've done 2 sweaters completed years ago. One was knit, one was crocheted. like this. And the crocheted one was red, and it was like upcycled yarn from a Goodwill sweater or something. But it was like a worsted weight yarn. And that one was asymmetrical with circular yoke. And then I also did the February Lady sweater, which wasn't circular, but the February Lady sweater is a knit pattern. And I did that with an offset opening. So instead of making sure everything's centered, I basically divide it up visually, like almost 2/3 to 1/3, you know, where the buttons are coming down definitely to the other side. That's probably not even enough right there. So it'll be about 2/3 to 1/3. And you can fold it and just double check with the eyeball. And then you can kind of do like 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock deal. And just eyeball it and see how that looks. But you can fold it into thirds like so. And that'll tell you that that's about where you want it. So if you want an asymmetrical opening, try the 2/3 to 1/3 ratio. Okay. Can't think of anything else I want to tell you right now. Next time you see Orchid is not going to be anything else. If she changes her mind again, it's probably more me than her, but if she changes her mind again about what she wants to be, that's just too bad. Because I need to get done with this project and move on. There's another colorway of this that I want to get. It's like a light aqua blue. And I really want to do one of those. So the aqua blue one will probably be more of a kimono tee. I think that would be really cute in the aqua blue. So that is it for this video for today. Thanks. Ring for a smile. There is one more thing I want to tell you. And I'm going to point the camera down so you can see what I'm doing. I've taken a stitch marker or two out near the sleeves. And I'm going to mark this. I'm going to show you how I would put a stitch marker in to mark where I want my sleeves. Since this is all a very visual thing, and I can't fit it all into the camera above me, I'll do it like this so you can see. But here's the 2/3, 1/3 thing. Okay, you've got this overlap for your button placket, and I like to get it where my buttons aren't right on the edge. I want them about 4 stitches in, just like I did the buttonholes 4 stitches in. So with that, here is, if you can picture this, I'm going to fold this up to the button placket. So there's 2/3, and there's the other third. So it's about 2/3 to 1/3 ratio. So I've got this about where I want it. You don't have to be too terribly picky with it, but you do want to be sure that you count. If you're going to mark a sleeve off right here, and I'm going to grab my tape measure and just do this. I still have a couple rows that I want to do. I'm not that deep into the armpit area on me. Mine is generally like 10 to 12 inches. And I've done them as deep from the collar as 15 inches. And right now I'm at 9. So I would feel a lot more comfortable if I at least put on another row or two to give me another inch to make it 10. Because if you go, let me go back up again. Sorry about that. If you look at yourself and where that collar is falling on you, and you diagonally place this from where the collar starts on you to your armpit area, You don't want it like pulling. You want a little bit of ease. And minus 10, almost 10 and a half, midway to my armpit. So that's how I know when I try it on, if it feels right to me, then that's as deep as I need it. And I'm measuring it, and yeah, I might need another 3 rows, maybe 4 to get to 10, 10 and a half. So as far as, let me go back down again. As far as the arms go, if you know that your arms, each arm is half of your bust measurement. I haven't even, it's been a while since I measured my bust. I'll just go ahead and do that real quick. Okay. My bust with no ease is about 51, almost 51 inches. So half of that would be 25.5. And that would be for the arms. So dividing 25 in half, I would have 12 and a half. So and I'm going to try this on again, but this is where one sleeve would be, right here. And then this is my left side. So what you would do is mark those stitches together, and then when you come back to stitch your body, you're going to just start working back and forth with just the body stitches, the back and the front. And then this would be reserved for the sleeves for later. So if I add a few rows here, like 3 to 4 rows for the body, I'm going to increase just on the body stitches. And then the sleeve, I think, is about right. So I would just keep stitching on the sleeve unless I need to add 1 to 4 stitches or so in the first row or 2 before I start the lace, just to make the stitch count right. And I would suggest that you do, if you're going to do a lacy bottom to it, consider a fillet stitch like this here, where like every other row is fillet, or something that is simple to decrease in. You wouldn't want to get into a stitch pattern repeat that's like 8 rows deep, just because it's harder to figure, you know, if it's a complicated stitch where everything is offset, you're not working in an even unit, they're laid in like bricks, you know, you just need to keep in mind your decreasing is going to be a little more difficult. And with my arms being so much bigger than average size, I don't want to have to do a lot of decreasing beyond my normal decreasing. I don't want to have to like do a lot of figuring, and I don't want to have to make any sharp decreasing. So I just try to stick with a simple lace pattern for the bottom. The red one that I did had a simple shell, the 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet in the same space, and then it had, you know, the same shell over and over again over itself. So it's just a simple shell, and that one was really cute. I got a lot of compliments on that one. So this is what I would do. Mark your first sleeve, count the stitches, and then count where you mark on the second sleeve and adjust as necessary. And also, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and, I'm just eyeballing it right now, I'll count it later, but it's not a bad idea once you've got your locking stitch markers in there to just go ahead and open it up and try it on. Just pretend that that's where you're going to put your sleeves and try it on. It gets a little roly-poly. And I can see right now this may be a little far over for me. But it also has not been steam blocked. Once it's steam blocked, it's going to relax a whole lot. But I definitely, if I start now with the body stitches, I definitely need to add an increase row. So I'm going to figure out which stitch I'm going to do. I'm torn between 3 different ones right now. And I'll figure out which one. And then I will go ahead and add an increase row that adds those evenly across the row. The arms seem a little big. See how that back of that one's kind of flaring out? I mean, you want that ease, but I have a little bit more ease there than I do here. So I'm going to move my arms, making my arms a little bit smaller, maybe about an inch. So that on each side. So that'll give me 2 more inches here. And then I'm going to retry it on. So this is the pain of designing for yourself. But if you like that freedom, then designing's for you. And you're not constricted by other people's numbers and, trying to figure out if you're just got the numbers right and you're doing this and that right. You're making it to fit yourself. And generally speaking, let's address child sizes. I have not talked about child proportions yet. Mainly because I really don't have any hard rules on that. When I design for kids, whether it be knitting or crochet, I picture that kid in my mind's eye. That helps me, you hug them, you hold them, you know how they feel, their little neck, you hold a baby and you know about their size. So that's pretty much how I approach children's garments. And it typically works for me. I've not had anything really come out bad as far as a bad fit goes for a kid. They don't have the same body ratios that adults have. Their body ratios are a little bit different. I don't even know what they are, but I'm sure knittingfool.com probably addresses that. That's what I use before to learn body ratios for adults, so for myself mainly. And that site is really good and loaded with information, so you can actually use that to figure out body ratios for a child's garment if you wanted to make something for a child. But this type of sweater I have made for child size for one of my great nieces when she was little, for a Christmas sweater. And it was fabulous. It was so cute. It had little cloth, fabric covered buttons. And then I used the same fabric. I think I put pockets on it with the fabric. So it was really cute. A very customized sweater just for her. And she would always comment at Christmas time that she missed getting a sweater when I didn't have time to do them anymore. So let me know if you guys have any questions in the comment section below. And I hope that you got something out of this little session, even though Orchid took a left turn on us and she decided to become something else. That's fine with me. I just want everybody to be aware this playlist inside the Designing Mind is the playlist, and that is always subject to change. These are not tutorials. This playlist is not. So this is kind of my playground, and you're invited in to have a closer look at how I go about designing things or why I decide to change my mind on something. But I just want you to know that in no way should be taken as a tutorial because it's so incomplete. And I'm not taking you through the stitches and the steps and everything like that. So I try to keep my projects simple and my tutorials kind of straightforward. And some of it is left up to you to decide for you. Try things on as you go, that kind of deal. Look at another shirt that you have, compare it to another sweater or another top that you have, kind of deal where you can play with your measurements that you want worked into the item. So nothing is set in stone or cookie cutter, especially this playlist. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.